In this video, we will be reviewing the Gold Scalper Breakout mt5 Expert Advisor by Mr. Vasily Strukov. Stick around to the end to see if this is a real bot worth your time or just another MQL5 scam. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London Breakout and the Opening Range Breakout? Then click the link in the description. So this is quite an interesting bot, as it is demonstrating that it trades a very tried and tested gold strategy. So it appears to be a breakout-based scalping system, and he's looking for a range and then placing pending orders at the top and the bottom of the range. And those would usually classify or be characterized as support resistance levels. And upon the break of these levels, these type of systems usually open orders with a very tight trailing stop loss. But a few other interesting points here is that it says it perhaps increases the volume upon break of these levels. So maybe it's adding into positions, and that's quite interesting. And he also knows that there's no grid, no martingale, and it's also prop firm specific. And here he's giving a bit more details regarding how the system actually runs, so that you're able to toggle off buys and sells. So perhaps if you think gold is in a very bullish period, you might not want to take any sell trades, just to be able to use fundamentals to enhance your strategy. He also discusses that you're able to influence market and pending orders. The market orders is pretty interesting because that might be what he's using to double down on positions. He also talks to the different types of money management and risk management tools which he's including, all of which make a lot of sense and seem like logical for this type of system. And here I wouldn't be surprised if these are the pending order levels which he's speaking of. And he's also having a few interesting visuals here which might denote how he's adding lots into a position. And here I will just quickly, I actually clicked on his link and there was no direct link to a signal, but I actually went to his seller profile and found the Gold Scalper Breakout signal right here. And here we're seeing that in December, this appears to be a fairly new bot, the actual results have been very good so far. And if we look at the trading history, we're seeing that this thing trades a lot, so it's been very active the past few weeks. But so far, the results appear to be pretty exceptional. Something odd, though, is that at first the results were super high, and then the trade size was very large at the beginning, and then he very rapidly scaled down risk. This is kind of like a classic MQL5 seller trick, where you first go and use an enormous lot size, like 1 lot, and then you just completely massively reduce the risk on the account. And this enables him to have a super high initial account growth because he was using extremely high risk at the beginning, and then he massively scales down lot size. So even if it has a bad period, you're still going to see these really high absolute return numbers. So you be careful about that. It's not something which is the most honest way of demonstrating a signal. However, it's a common thing that's used on MQL5, so you can't really blame the guy too much for that either. And we're seeing is that when he was using very high lot sizing, he was only winning. So I have a feeling what he was doing is he was using a lot of leverage on a winning streak, and then he immediately reduced leverage, and then we started seeing a few losers here. And perhaps there's also a degree of grid happening because we are seeing many trades which close at the same time, something to definitely keep in mind. So I'm averaging into positions where he claims that upon break of a support and resistance level, he's opening more positions. Perhaps there's some degree of recovery mechanisms or lot scaling being done here, but all of which is still very interesting. So here I actually ran a back test of his, and as you can see, I've downloaded the EA and I ran a back test on the M15 time frame for gold from the beginning of 2024 to today. And this detachment in the equity from the balance line would indicate some degree of recovery mechanism. So we're seeing obviously here we actually effectively blew the account. So there may have been some sort of equity stop loss, or I think when the back test actually ended, MQL5 or mt5 just closes all the positions. So that could have been why we see this massive drop off here. But clearly this level of equity balance detachment is indicating that there's some sort of something funny going on. Either it doesn't close positions, or it's opening more positions, or it just never uses the stop loss, or it has an enormous stop loss, but something tricky is happening. If we go through the inputs here, I was actually looking for if the money management or recovery setting was turned on. And here I used default settings, and it was indeed false. And then here as well, we can see that it's opening both longs and shorts. It enables manual orders, and you're able to set max market orders and max pending orders. And here the stop loss, it says it's using, if it's 0, it should be auto stop loss. So perhaps that also means that if it's set to 0, it's using a martingale system or some sort of recovery system in lieu of a stop loss. And then here we're seeing start trail, so there would be a trailing stop loss to take profits here as well. So from what I can see so far, it doesn't appear to be a manipulated system. It does appear to be a real system here. However, there is the recovery mechanism being used is clearly very, very risky. And here we can see that there's clearly multiple positions which are left open for a long period of time. And here, as the backtest ended, they all kind of closed simultaneously. But it appears to just be opening more and more positions. And if price goes against it, it's going to have a lot of open positions. And some sort of grid mechanism is also being used here. The exact trigger, it does look like a breakout system, consistent with what he's saying, but the recovery seems to be a bit more of the riskier aspect here. Let me quickly run a visual backtest so that we're able to see what's going on. And I'll just quickly slow it down. We can see that there's lots of different pending orders placed, and those pending orders are being placed at the minimas and the maximas of a range, which is consistent with what he's saying. Let's fast forward so we can see what happens when a range is broken or when an order is triggered. And there we go. So if price goes against it, let's now wait to see if it opens some more positions. Okay, so it keeps this order open, this position open, but then it starts trading against it. Okay, and then it waits for it to go back down. So it's enabling multiple different positions to be open at the same time. The initial entry does appear to be these breaks of key levels, but then sometimes it also enters in almost a mean reverting nature against the initial position. But this still appears to be based on a breakout. Huh. And let's see what happens if an order is open for a long period of time. Okay. I'm just waiting for it to open. Oh yeah. So now it just has a ton of different orders open. And they're just kind of fluctuating. So yes, maybe to summarize here, to not make this video too long, the gentleman's system is taking the trigger which he is mentioning. He is trading breakouts of support and resistance levels. However, at least with these settings that I'm using, the recovery mechanism is quite risky. So I would be very careful about opening more and more positions and never closing anything, waiting for it to turn around, because that can go very poorly for gold, which tends to trend for long periods of time in a certain direction. Perhaps he does have some settings which enable you to reduce this risk or always have more of a stop loss. It would be worth exploring that in a bit more detail, which could reduce the risk of this strategy. So effectively, real strategy, but the recovery mechanism here is quite risky. So I would be a little bit careful about that. What I might suggest is just waiting to see if the live signal survives for quite a bit longer. And if it remains this cheap, maybe you could buy it and then kind of gerrymander the settings to make it a lot safer. However, yeah, like the recovery mechanism is a little bit too risky and is likely to blow accounts. But the actual strategy is pretty good. So hope you guys found this video interesting. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this. Take care.